Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 75 based on novel. So let's start. The golden thunder crossed through the void and disappeared into the darkness. Mu Han's face looked very ugly. Unexpectedly, it had reached such a point that the rock owl in front of him could stubbornly avoid his attack, which made his heart more angry. Little bastard. I see how many times you can hide again. Now you are at the end of a powerful crossbow, and there is little fighting spirit left in your body. If you continue to consume like this, you will end up dead. Cough. Master Mu Han doesn't have to worry about it. Even if I die, I won't die in your hands. Cough. The void not far away was slightly twisted, and Xiao Yan, who was dressed in Avenue gauze, appeared again. At the moment, his Avenue gauze clothes are more solid than before. With the help of the only fighting spirit in his body, Xiao Yan can fully integrate with the surrounding void in a short time. Even Mu Han can't detect Xiao Yan's position. However, with the passage of time, the short-term concealment has gradually turned into a short-distance flash. The fighting spirit recovered by the 8-product Huichi pill alone is not enough to support Xiao Yan's needs. Therefore, Xiao Yan can only try his best to avoid Mu Han's attack. But fortunately, with the delay of the North King, Xiao Yan also had a chance to catch his breath. Dang! Mu Hanming's fist blew out and blew the oncoming North King out for tens of feet. The terrible force left a pit several inches on the surface of the North King's body, which looked very penetrating. This is also thanks to the fact that the North King is just a puppet. If he is really a living man, this punch alone may be enough to take half of his life. Mu Han frowned and stared at the North King, who was blown out. When his inverted body touched the thunder, he sucked it into his body. With the thunder flashing, the huge pit on the North King's chest also recovered rapidly with the naked eye. Seeing this scene, Mu Han's old face couldn't help twitching. If he had seen such a monster, he really hadn't seen such a monster. The owner's terror was even worse. Unexpectedly, even the puppet was as terrible as opening and hanging. Moreover, in the process of fighting with the North King, Mu Han was even more surprised that as long as the North King touched those thunder, not only the damage he suffered will be restored, but also his own strength will be improved to a certain extent. In this void thunder pool, the beast is an invincible god of war. Damn it! Who the hell are you, and how can you be full of devils with rebellious abilities? This is only the North King of 6-star and half-emperor strength. It is hard to imagine that if his strength is raised to a higher level in the future, he can easily solve the so-called real strong without Xiao Yang's action. The heart secretly guessed that Mu Han felt Xiao Yang's terror more and more, but without waiting for him to think more, the restored North King rushed again. On the other hand, Xiao Yan also took this short opportunity to recover the little fighting spirit left in his body as soon as possible. He knew that although the North King's recovery ability in this empty thunder pool could be called against the sky, he could not master the fighting spirit after all. In addition, the strength gap between him and Mu Han would sooner or later be defeated by Mu Han. If you want to stabilize yourself, Xiao Yan must rely on himself in the end. Swallowing 2 8-grade Qi returning pills again, Xiao Yan retreated while rapidly refining the pills in his body with different fire, and continuously injecting the fighting spirit into the cyclone in Xiao Yan's body. At the same time, in the process of Xiao Yan's progress, hundreds of thunder constantly bombarded Xiao Yan's Avenue gauze clothes, but in a flash, they were swallowed up by the Avenue gauze clothes, and the power of the Avenue on the black gauze clothes became more and more strong. Boom! The terrible fighting skill blew the North King 100 feet away. The power of terror made the North King's whole chest sunken. There was a nearly 1-foot-long crack in the North King's abdomen. Then Mu Han raised his hands quickly. Between the changes of Yin-Ju, an array shot out quickly, trapped the North King in it and made him unable to get out of trouble in a short time. After finishing these, Mu Han looked at Xiao Yang, but found that Xiao Yang had escaped thousands of miles away, frowned slightly, Mu cold snorted, moved randomly and quickly caught up with him. Just for a moment, Mu Hanbing saw Xiao Yang again. But when he saw the latter, Mu Han couldn't help frowning again, because Xiao Yang was sitting in the void and making cultivation knots with his hands. It seemed that he was refining something in his body. On Xiao Yang's body surface, the painted black Avenue gauze clothes are releasing a fierce suction at the moment, attracting all the thunder in the thunder pool. At the moment of touching the Avenue gauze clothes, those thunder will be quickly swallowed up by the Avenue gauze clothes. Invisibly, there are dark light spots imperceptible to the naked eye, which are integrated into the Avenue gauze clothes, and the power on the Avenue gauze clothes is gradually thick and powerful. Damn! What's the matter? How can even this smelly boy swallow these thunder in an instant? Did these two guys come out of one womb? Mu Han's face was extremely gloomy, and his heart became more and more dignified. He couldn't help shouting angrily in his mouth. In the next moment, Mu Han suddenly raised his hair and gave a startling roar. The momentum suddenly shook. The turbulent fighting spirit in his body poured out madly. The golden light overflowed. Mu Han's body twinkled and appeared in front of Xiao Yang. However, Xiao Yang was still a pill with his eyes closed and in the refined body. Mu Han's face suddenly turned violent. With a fierce wave of his right hand, he bent his fingers into claws, and his fighting spirit condensed at his fingertips. He was like a sharp blade, cutting iron like mud, aiming at Xiao Yang's head, and waved it hard. If this claw falls on Xiao Yang's head will be divided into watermelon petals in an instant. Seeing Xiao Yang, Mu Han's face was even more ferocious, and his actions were more fierce. He vowed to kill Xiao Yang. Die. However, just when Mu Han's claws were less than an inch away from Xiao Yang's cheek, Xiao Yang suddenly opened his eyes, and the golden light suddenly appeared in a pair of dark eyes. At the same time, his mind moved. The light of the avenue gauze on his body was shocked in an instant, and the strange light hid Xiao Yang's breath in an instant. Shua. A claw full of momentum tore the void fiercely, but in the end, it didn't even touch a hair of Xiao Yang. The appearance of this scene immediately shocked Mu Han's face. When he reacted, Xiao Yang's figure had appeared a few feet away. When Mu Han looked up, Xiao Yang was sticking out with one hand. The suction in the palm surged wildly. In the void, strands of small black lines like silver fish quickly gushed out. They gradually condensed in Xiao Yang's palm and turned into a black roulette the size of a fist. The whole roulette looks like a reduced version of the spatial impulse. The center of the roulette is a deep darkness. If you stare at it with your eyes, you can feel a vague attraction, which makes the soul difficult to control. Its periphery is a counterclockwise whirlpool, which seems to be somewhat similar to Xiao Yang's Buddha anger reincarnation. The difference is that the whirlpool is a void, while the Buddha anger reincarnation is a vast different fire. This is the rudiment of the void avenue. With the gradual condensation of the roulette, Xiao Yang just recovered a little ruddy, and his face became pale again. The cohesion of the power of the road not only needs the support of the soul power, but also has a great load for fighting spirit. Although the power of the avenue is powerful, its control is also extraordinary and its fighting skills are comparable. The control and display of the avenue need the joint support of soul power and fighting spirit. Similarly, the power displayed by the avenue is also more terrible. Seeing that Xiao Yang was safe and sound, Mu Han's face changed again. When he saw the dark wheel in Xiao Yang's hand, he was surprised. After the previous Buddha anger reincarnation, he involuntarily had a fear of these disc-shaped things on Xiao Yang. With a slight turn of his eyes, Mu Han found that the dark wheel in Xiao Yang's hand was not the reincarnation of Buddha's anger, which was secretly relieved in his heart, and his face turned into a cold again. Boy, you really belong to Loach. In the face of Mu Han's angry and cold ridicule, Xiao Yang is non-committal. This kind of provocation has no effect on him. Seeing that Xiao Yang was unmoved, Mu Han frowned and snorted coldly. His body suddenly shook and jumped at Xiao Yanfei again. His hands changed, and the fighting spirit in his palm condensed rapidly. Mu Han blew out a palm, and a golden light immediately shot at Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang's eyes narrowed, staring at the bright golden light coming from his face. His palm waved gently, and the dark wheel in his palm flew to Xiao Yang's body and grew rapidly. When the golden light came, the dark wheel also went up against the wind and rushed away with the golden light. With a flash of black light, in the thunder pool, the terrible fighting skill full of golden light was the moment when it collided with the dark roulette, as if it had been swallowed into a black hole. The light flashed and disappeared. What? Seeing this scene, Mu was shocked, and the look on his face changed accordingly. Who could have thought that such a strong fighting skill would be swallowed up by the ordinary-looking space crack? How possible? Mu Han could not help exclaiming again. The situation in front of him was like this, but he saw for the first time since his cultivation that the fight skill of hitting the sky steps would be swallowed up by a void crack. At least, the strange wheel in front of him was almost the same as the space crack he was familiar with. Nothing is impossible. If you have to explain, you can only say that you are ignorant. Hearing Mu Han's unbelievable words, Xiao Yang chuckled. The slight irony in the words made the 9-star and half-emperor frown again. Based on his experience, although he did not dare to say that he knew all the strange things on the mainland, it was absolutely impossible that the things in front of him that looked like cracks in the air could be condensed by some array or other objects. This thing is obviously condensed by some special force. Mu Han stared at the strange wheel in front of him, and quickly flashed all kinds of possible things in his mind. A moment later, he finally thought of something. He raised his eyes fiercely and stared at Xiao Yang with shocked eyes. The look on an old face fully explained what was unbelievable. At this moment, Mu Han's dry palm hidden under his sleeve robe, it was a little trembling. How could it be? How could it be? It was the power of the road. Shua. Behind Mu Han, the fierce wind suddenly sounded. Mu Han was surprised. He turned around in a hurry and greeted him with a fist. Dang! With a loud and clear noise, Mu Han frowned and stepped back a few steps. When he turned around, the North King's body also flew upside down. Then the soles of his feet stepped on a thunderstorm. When his strength poured out, the silver thunder was swallowed by the North King, and his body suddenly swept away. In a flash, he stood on the side in front of Xiao Yang. Mu Han's eyebrows wrinkled slightly across the North King, and finally his eyes fell on Xiao Yang. His face was gradually cold. At the moment, the palm hidden under his sleeve robe was trembling slightly. The attack of the North King just now made him a little unprepared, otherwise, he wouldn't be so embarrassed. It's the power of the road. Unexpectedly, at your age, you can control the power of the road. Mu Han stared at Xiao Yang coldly, and his words showed a group of envy. This is not surprising. After all, Tiandi Avenue, a more ethereal thing than its fighting spirit, has been inaccessible to many people for a lifetime, but Xiao Yang in front of him at the moment, but a 3-star-and-a-half emperor, can control the power of the avenue. How can this make Mu Han, who claims to be a strong man, not jealous? Hearing Mu Han's words, Xiao Yang smiled non-committally and didn't speak. Ha ha ha. Mu Han stared at Xiao Yang with his eyes. A moment later, he smiled inexplicably. Then the corners of his mouth lifted up and showed a pat of sen-white teeth. His strange eyes matched with this smile could not help but make people feel cold. Ha ha. Your cultivation talent and your treasure really surprised me. I haven't felt this feeling for many years. Oh, should I be honored for that? Xiao Yang narrowed his eyes and smiled at Mu Han Lung. Hehe, not only that, you are the first guy that I have been so devoted to dealing with in the past 100 years. I never thought that an insect like an ant could make me so bother, but you did it. Xiao Yang was non-committal. His eyelids were slightly lower and he nodded slightly. Then he opened his mouth again and said with a smile, "In that case, I want to know who asked you to do your best against me 100 years ago." At this point, Mu Han's eyes suddenly coagulated. His old eyes narrowed and stared at Xiao Yang. The latter also had clear eyes and stared at Mu Han like an ancient well without waves. After a long time, Mu Han continued to say with a slightly gloomy face, "I think you really can't talk. This mouth is like a blade. The tongue is a needle. It's special to pick on thorns." Xiao Yang's stretched eyebrows wrinkled slowly, and his eyes looked around uneasily. The thunder in the surrounding space retreated involuntarily, leaving a huge circular space. I just want to know who else can have such a powerful strength. After all, the 9-star-and-half emperor can't challenge casually. Bei Wang's iron tower-like body took a half step to the left, blocking Xiao Yang's body. Ignoring the North King's action, Mu Han's face looked more and more cold, but his mouth showed a seemingly warm smile and said, "In that case, I'll tell you that this man not only has great hatred with me, but also you know that if he had stayed in the wilderness, I wouldn't have the title of wild double bully now." Xiao Yang's eyes coagulated slightly. The most important thing is that he even knew the person Mu Han praised so much. A moment later, Xiao Yangmeng returned to his mind and a strong figure appeared in his mind. The figure is strong and almost half taller than ordinary people. What attracts people's attention most is his shiny bald head and his invisible domineering spirit. It's Ju Tai. Ju Tai. Hehe, it's this guy. Ju Tai's popularity in the wild ancient city is no worse than that of you now. I'm just surprised that not only Ju Tai is a member of the Medicine Refining Association, but even you are also the chief medicine refiner of the Medicine Refining Association. The voice fell, but Mu Han's dry palm hidden under his sleeve robe suddenly lifted up, his hands changed rapidly, and the printing formula was played out rapidly, condensing rapidly in the void in front of him. Xiao Yang's eyes were frozen. Seeing Mu Han's appearance, he was surprised. He didn't dare to be careless. His hands were raised quickly, the knots in his hands were changed, and the power of the road was quickly condensed in front of him. Hihi, do you want to hide now? It's too late. Mu Han's voice fell. Before Xiao Yang's dark wheel condensed out, mysterious runes emitting dazzling golden light appeared on this void. Finally, Mu Han gradually spliced into a huge circular array. At this time, Mu Han was in the position of the array eye. At this moment, Xiao Yansai suddenly realized that the space under his feet was set up a terrible array by Mu Han in this short moment. At the moment when the rune appeared, Xiao Yang immediately felt that the fighting spirit in his body was suppressed by some strange pressure at this moment. The running speed of fighting spirit was a little slower than usual. At this moment, he obviously felt that his overall strength would be suppressed with the emergence of this array. Whether it is strength, or speed, or the running speed of fighting spirit, these are suppressed. Damn it. The old guy really doesn't have any good intentions. Xiao Yang scolded angrily in his heart. At the same time, he also blamed himself for being fearless. He thought that Mu Han could not catch himself with the Void Avenue. However, from the current situation, he still thought too much. Even if there is a Void Avenue, when facing the strong, as long as there are strong enough means, even the most terrible avenue will also be suppressed by strength. Hihi, I haven't been idle for 100 years. In order to defeat Ju Tai in 100 years, I spent 100 years to integrate my own field with all the arrays I studied. Although this process is difficult, the results I get are exactly what I want. Today, I'll try the ox knife with you first. Golden Array Field. Kai. With a low cry, the array at Xiao Yang's feet suddenly twisted strangely. It originally looked like a huge array, but in this short moment, many terrorist arrays with no weakness were derived from the whole field. Various arrays showed that a dazzling golden light containing terrorist energy burst towards Xiao Yang. At the same time, the terror around Xiao Yang's body has been weakened a lot. Aware of this, Xiao Yang is slightly surprised, but before he responds, the dazzling golden light has come in front of him. Facing the power of these arrays, Xiao Yang was afraid to be careless. His body was carrying the terrible pressure from around him. The right hand under his sleeve robe suddenly stretched out and held it in the air. The Xian heavy ruler suddenly appeared in his palm. His arm shook and the giant ruler danced. Liuhe swimming ruler. A low roar came out. Xiao Yang clenched the Xian heavy ruler with both hands and spread his feet. The heavy giant ruler waved quickly. His face solemnly resisted all the golden lights from the fierce shooting. The fighting spirit just recovered in Xiao Yang's body was also quickly consumed at the moment. Mu Han was surprised when he saw this. Then he snorted coldly and stared at Xiao Yang with a gloomy face. The fighting spirit in his body quickly lifted up, and his body moved suddenly. In a flash, he appeared in front of Xiao Yang's body. I see how you block it. With a sharp drink, Mu Han stepped on the rapidly waving Xian heavy ruler, and the Xian heavy ruler immediately stagnated slightly. Mu Han turned his body around the ruler, turned and kicked Xiao Yang. Bang! The strength of terror poured out wildly. Xiao Yang's face turned red, a big mouthful of blood gushed out of his mouth, and his thin body flew out uncontrollably. Mu Han was unwilling to give up. The soles of his feet stepped on the void, and the space under his feet exploded. His body flew forward again, and hit Xiao Yang's chest with a fist. However, just when Mu Han's fist was about to fall, Xiao Yang's pale face suddenly burst into a violent color, holding the palm of Shen Chong Kai, holding the giant Kai with his backhand, waving his arm violently, and a Kai hit Mu Han's left shoulder. At the same time, a space crack suddenly appeared behind Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang's body flashed and disappeared. Mu Han also immediately stopped his body, his dry right hand held his left shoulder, an old face twitched slightly, cold sweat slipped from the corners of his eyes, clenched his teeth, and the slightest cold wind kept pumping between his teeth. If his left shoulder didn't have a few months, it might be difficult to operate again. Xiao Yang's blow with all his strength soon made him suffer a lot. Little bastard. I must tear you to pieces today. With a sudden turn of body shape, Mu Han's printed formula changed rapidly, and the array in the whole field changed again, forming a semicircular array mask. At the same time, the array within the mask is still changing. In a short moment, more than 10 different types of powerful attack arrays have been formed. The dazzling golden light is like a sharp sword, which frightens people's eyes and makes people dare not open their eyes. At the moment, Xiao Yang is being blocked in that array. Gaga, gaga. Enjoy it. This array used to kill 9 stars and a half emperors. Although it has been integrated into the field by me and its power has been reduced, it has more than enough blood to deal with you. Mu Han stared at Xiao Yang, who appeared in the array with a ferocious face. The smile from the corners of his mouth looked quite terrible. Xiao Yang also looked at these arrays solemnly. Compared with those just now, the energy distribution in this array is more uniform. All the big array breath are combined to completely condense this array into an array. The power can be said to have increased exponentially. Once this array operates, the explosion of power will be more difficult to resist. In this case, any defense will appear pale and weak. Even the Void Avenue, under the action of the mask, will also make Xiao Yang have nowhere to hide. What's more, the exertion of the Void Avenue is also a terrible figure for the consumption of fighting spirit. Today's Xiao Yang alone can't persist with the Void Avenue in the array. At this moment, if you want to break this array, the only and most effective way is to fight violence with violence and break it forcibly in the most violent way. In addition, Xiao Yang can't think of any other way. With a wave of his arm, Shen Chongkai appeared in the palm again. Xiao Yang's body floated in the void. His eyes looked around and stared at Mu Han outside the array through the array. A moment later, Xiao Yang took a step and withdrew half a step backward. The huge ruler was tilted behind him. There was little fighting spirit left in his body. At this moment, he poured all his energy into the Shen heavy ruler. At the same time, the power of the avenue was also rapidly condensed into the avenue yarn clothes on Xiao Yang's body surface. Mu Han looked at Xiao Yang staring at himself in the array, but his heart had already erased any thought of underestimate. After this battle, he had already regarded Xiao Yang as a strong man of the same level. If anyone dares to regard him as an ordinary 3-star half-emperor, the result may not be better than Mu Han now. In the large array, Xiao Yang looked at the dazzling golden lights coming from his face. His face was sharp, and his palm holding the Shen heavy ruler stepped up a bit. When those golden lights hit, Xiao Yang held the giant ruler tightly with both hands, and his eyes suddenly became violent. He waved his arms together, and the Shen heavy ruler in his hand immediately waved from bottom to top, tearing the void with terrible wind pressure, 1 foot hard. 7 broken sky feet. 1 foot. Xiao Yang suddenly burst out a startling and fierce drink in his mouth. Then he waved a huge ruler in his hand. The light on the front of the ruler flashed, and a gorgeous ruler orn burst out. He blasted up against the golden light coming from the front. Boom. With a bang, the terrible energy wave spread, which made the whole array tremble 3 times. However, in a short period of time, the fierce Kai Mang was forcibly smashed under the golden light. The golden light was slightly dim, but the prestige was not reduced at all. With the power of terror, it still rushed towards Xiao Yang. Seeing this, Xiao Yang's face remained the same. His body standing in the void suddenly turned around in place. The huge ruler in his hand was waved again. It was another terrible ruler that was no less powerful than the previous one. 2 feet. The sound of fierce drinking came out. Before it fell, Xiao Yang waved his arms, and the giant ruler obliquely rubbed his body again. It was another ruler orn, which was shot in an instant and integrated into the second ruler orn. 3 feet. 4 feet. 5 feet. 6 feet. After several violent drinks, the huge dark ruler in Xiao Yang's hand flew close to his body. The huge black ruler was like a long gun in Xiao Yang's hand. The huge ruler waved and the wind blew everywhere. The terrible wind pressure pressed the air sharply. The terrible sound of sonic boom continued to spread in the void. The terrorist pressure around Xiao Yang was also under Xiao Yang's fierce action, completely removed. Bang! 5 feet in succession, several dazzling golden lights coming from the front were finally scattered by Xiao Yang. Even if it was a fusion array, it would inevitably be blown apart under the bombardment of Xiao Yang's complete fighting skills. Mu Han, who was outside the array, was surprised when he saw this scene. Unexpectedly, Xiao Yang was so fierce that he blew away the 4 spirits array he was proud of. These 4 arrays, however, each represent a powerful warcraft. Even the 8-star and a half-emperor can't disperse them with just a few moves. Unexpectedly, after meeting Xiao Yang, he will break the impossibility again. But even so, Mu Han didn't worry at all. Although the 4-spirit array was scattered by Xiao Yang, the strength of the 4 warcraft after being scattered was not covered. Xiao Yang didn't want to solve them at one time. At the next moment, the golden light scattered and turned into 4 mysterious warcraft with bright golden light all over. Each of the 4 giant beasts stood on one side. A pair of golden blinking animal pupils stared at Xiao Yang, roaring in the mouth, and the momentum of terror. Even if the 7-star and a half-emperor saw it, he would be shocked in his heart. After a while, the 4 giants raised their hair together and roared like thunder. Then they rushed at Xiao Yanfei with teeth and claws. A pair of sharp claws emitting golden light seemed to tear Xiao Yang to pieces. Xiao Yang's face was pale and his eyes scanned for a week. He looked at the 4 giant beasts flying. Xiao Yang was calm and took a deep breath of cold air. Xiao Yang gripped the Xian heavy ruler again in his palm, and his strength gathered sharply on his arms. His green tendons were exposed, like small green snakes, crawling under Xiao Yang's skin. It's just 4 animals condensed by the array. If your body is here, I'll really be afraid, but if it's just you, you'd better die for me. A cold cry with disdain fell down. Xiao Yang's face was very ferocious. His arms waved suddenly again, and the boulder in his hand swept out. His broad ruler smashed to the nearest golden beast. In the array, the massive beast is twice as tall as Xiao Yang, but in Xiao Yang's view, it is as if there is nothing. The giant ruler in his hand never stops. The terrible wind brought by the waving of the giant ruler is even more powerful than that beast. This scene, even if Mu Han outside the array saw it, the look on his face could not help but change slightly. At the next moment, the broad and strong giant ruler smashed on the giant beast, accompanied by a sad howl. The giant beast with full power at the previous moment was blown away by Xiao Yang under this ruler. Ho! 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 There were 4 violent bangs in succession, and the 4 giants were blown away by Xiao Yang. Bang! The 4th giant beast fell on the other 3 giant beasts stacked together. Xiao Yang struggled to lift the giant ruler. His pale face looked like a dying man, but even so, Xiao Yang was still forcing himself. He needed to cheer up. He had to insist and insist again and again. He didn't want to die in Mu Han's hand. Cough. He coughed for 2 times. Xiao Yang's body was not soft enough and almost fell down. Xiao Yang forcibly supported his body, clutching Xian's heavy ruler with his bloodless palm and gasping for breath. Xiao Yang finally tried his best and shouted again. Drink. 7 feet. Xiao Yang's face swelled and he went all out to wave the huge ruler in his hand. Kai Mang shot fiercely, but Xiao Yang followed. At the moment, Xiao Yang's face, which was almost fainting, showed an extremely crazy look. Mu Han's strength finally made him feel powerless. Although his explosive power was not weak, it was always too poor compared with Mu Han. If he wanted to compete with him, it was very unlikely that he could hold on to this moment. He already feels lucky. After all, even so far, Mu Han has never used his full strength. His strength is just to stop himself. If Xiao Yang hadn't borne the 2 most terrible speeds of Chenjua Steppe and Void Avenue, he would have been defeated in Mu Han's hands. His dealings with Mu Han, from beginning to end, just rely on his speed and linger. However, at the moment, he still can only escape. This full blow is only his last expectation, that's all. The gorgeous ruler and Orn crossed the void, leaving a tail line close to vacuum. Xiao Yang followed, his breath was weak, but he still insisted. Mu Han's eyes narrowed falsely, and his eyes stared at Xiao Yang through his feet. He looked suspicious, but in Xiao Yang's state at the moment, he didn't think he could do anything amazing. But the next moment, Mu Han's face with a sneer suddenly showed a look of surprise. Looking at Xiao Yang, he also became fierce again. Shua. At the moment when Kai Mang was about to collide with 4 giants, Xiao Yang's speed immediately accelerated. The dark avenue gauze quickly flew out and condensed into a spatial channel. Immediately, the gorgeous Kai Mang Shua disappeared into it, and Xiao Yang continued to follow closely. Boom. In the next moment, the light mask covering the whole array suddenly seemed to be hit by something, and there was a violent roar, and the whole array also trembled violently. Mu Hanshuan went to the place where his sight fell, and Bei Wang was smashing his fist on the mask again. Heh! The eyes slightly coagulated. Mu Han was surprised, but then the next moment, the more terrible roar came out again. Boom! The golden array trembled more violently, and Mu Han wanted to start, but he noticed that while the roar fell, the North King's iron fist fell hard. Click! Mu Han has studied the fusion array for 100 years. At this moment, it is officially announced that it is broken. Here is a pure black world. In the dark, the energy violent thunder soars everywhere in the space. The occasional collision can cause a great chain reaction in this space, resulting in the terrible thunder sound like the roar of a wild bear all the time in this dark world. In the periphery of this dark world, on the contrary, the thunder in the void shows a bright silver, just like silverfish flying in the void. Compared with those black thunders, the silver thunders are slightly weaker, but it is precisely because of this that ordinary semi-imperial strong men can bear these forces, so as to devour and refine and improve their accomplishments. At the junction of the 2 kinds of thunder, The special coercion forms a simple barrier to separate the two kinds of thunder 2 miles away. However, the different degree of violence of the two kinds of thunder also makes people understand the meaning of this barrier. Cultivation is not easy, enough is enough. At this time, outside the barrier, in the silver sea of thunder, there were 3 figures standing in front and behind. The one far away from the barrier and standing in the middle of the silver thunder sea is an old man who looks a little embarrassed. He is not Mu Han, but who can he be? In front of him and in front of the barrier, the man who barely supported his body from falling down was Xiao Yan. In front of him was the North King who guarded him all the way. Cough. Xiao Yan coughed violently, and the blood continued to overflow from his mouth. His pale face looked terrible and extremely weak, which made his breathing very difficult at the moment. In the original pair of dark eyes, there was a grey color at the moment, and his whole body's breath had reached the lowest point. But even so, Xiao Yang still insisted. He knew that as long as he crossed the last barrier behind him and entered the inside, even Mu Han didn't dare to step into the depths of the minefield easily. Although separated by the barrier, Xiao Yang still felt the terror of those black thunders. Once those thunders rise together and attack, that power, even Mu Han, is unbearable. Xiao Yang believes that Mu Han will never gamble with Xiao Yang with his own life. In the distance, Mu Han's turbid old eyes are staring at Xiao Yang like a pair of eagle hooks. It seems that he wants to pull Xiao Yang to himself with his eyes, but in addition, his face shows a deep dignified color to Xiao Yang at the moment. To be exact, it should be the black thunder in the barrier behind Xiao Yang. Although Xiao Yang was weak, he also noticed this. He couldn't help feeling a little relaxed immediately. It seems that Jiu Li's words are true. Even Mu Han, a 9-star and half emperor, was also afraid of the depths of the thunder pool. Rock Owl, you have no way to escape. Are you going to continue to struggle? Mu Han pretended to be calm and shouted coldly to Xiao Yang. Cough. Xiao Yang coughed violently again with weak breath, but the corners of his mouth unconsciously aroused a sarcastic smile. After a long time, he said to Mu Han in a slightly hoarse voice. Cough. Really? I have a place behind me. While Xiao Yang said this, he couldn't help spitting out a big mouthful of blood again, which made his face paler and his breath weaker. It seemed that he might fall down at any time. Even if you enter it, it's also a dead end. Mu Han shouted again, but the muscles in the corners of his eyes could not help shaking a few times. Obviously, although he wanted Xiao Yang to die, he didn't want him to die elsewhere. He wanted to kill Xiao Yang, but he didn't just want him to die, he had other purposes. Hee. Are you afraid of me going in? Xiao Yang smiled weakly. Mu Lung snorted and stared at Xiao Yang, but he didn't speak. Don't you really want to kill me? Why do you look like this when I turn around and die? Xiao Yang continued to speak. At the end of his voice, he gave a slight pause, and then continued. It's because the emperor robbed Dan. Xiao Yang said this. Mu Han's wrinkled old face was finally moved. The palm under his sleeve robe was slowly clenched. A moment later, Mu Han showed a smile again on his cold old face. Yes, my real purpose of entering the thunder pool this time is to rob the emperor. Xiao Yang was slightly surprised at Mu Han's active recognition, but he didn't want to take care of it. Mu Han paused a little, and his turbid old eyes stared at Xiao Yang. Then he continued to say, you should also know that as a 9-star and half emperor, it is very difficult to break through the strength. If you rely on yourself to break through the fighting emperor, the probability is really slim. Let alone the difficulty of breaking through, even if there is no imperial robbery pill, there will not be much chance of winning in the face of imperial robbery. Mu Han's voice fell, Xiao Yang's palm on the opposite side raised slightly with difficulty, and his heart moved. The light flashed in the palm. A glittering and translucent jade bottle appeared in Xiao Yang's palm. Through the jade bottle, you can see that there is a round pill the size of a longan, lying quietly in it. It's the emperor robbing Dan. At the first sight of Emperor Jedan, Mu Han even wanted to rush forward and take it from Xiao Yang, but in a twinkling of an eye, Mu Han quickly returned to his mind and calmed down. Xiao Yang in front of him is not easy to deal with. Even if he has run out of oil and the lamp is dry, once he uses his last strength to crush the pill in his hand together with the jade bottle, he may never get a full-quality imperial robbery pill in his life. That kind of result is not what Mu Han wants to see, so he must get the imperial robbery pill in Xiao Yang's hand at the moment. It's said that at the last meeting of the medicine refining master, the little friend of the rock owl once refined a complete imperial robbery pill. When I saw it today, it really deserved its reputation. Mu Han stared at the imperial robbery pill in the jade bottle with both eyes, but he couldn't help admiring Xiao Yang. Hehe, I'm worthy of my reputation, but I'm about to die in your hands. Xiao Yang's eyes narrowed and smiled at Mu Han coldly. Mu Han laughed again when he heard the speech. Then he looked at Xiao Yang and smiled at Xiao Yang's skin and meat. Haha, you and I are all understanding people. In your current situation, you will die if you turn around. This is the core of the Thunder Pool. Even I dare not step in easily. I think Jiu Li's old things have clearly told you this, and I won't say more. Now, as long as you give me the imperial robbery pill in your hand, I can guarantee that I will never hurt you again. From now on, I won't investigate anything that happens between you and me. Even, as long as you want, I can help you kill Mo Zhai. How about taking a pill for 2 lives? It's still very worth it for you. While talking, Mu Han had walked slowly towards Xiao Yang. The palm under his sleeve robe stretched out to Xiao Yang, waiting for Xiao Yang to throw the jade bottle in his hand. Oh, why should I trust you? With your strength, after you get the pill, you can kill me in an instant. Giving you the pill is equivalent to looking for your own death. Xiao Yang's body first stumbled, which also made Mu Han's heart mention, but then came words from Xiao Yang's mouth, which made the latter frown again. Do you think you still have a choice? Give me the pill and I'll let you live, otherwise. Or you'll be empty. With a sneer from Xiao Yang's mouth and a fierce turn of body shape, Xiao Yang rushed into the barrier behind him. Behind him, Bei Wang's strong body moved fiercely. Mu Han, who really rushed, blocked out of the barrier. In the dark and endless thunder pool, countless black thunder flows in it. Occasionally, the terrible explosion sound also spreads endlessly in the thunder pool, causing a series of chain reactions. Somewhere in the thunder pool, a figure covered with blood was lying quietly in the dark sea of thunder. At this moment, on the surface of his body, there was a golden dragon nearly 10 meters long around him, and a strange threat spread, expelling all the black thunder that bullied him. Therefore, the man covered with blood, to save his life. In this process, the golden dragon also licked all the blood gushing from the wounds on the man. Miraculously, the blood gushing from those wounds stopped after being licked by the dragon. When the dragon licked the wound on the man, all the purple and gold blood was absorbed by the dragon. When the blood stopped, the golden animal pupils the size of a copper bell showed a touch of purple and gold magic color. Roar! The low sound of dragon singing spread, and the whole thunder pool gradually calmed down with the spread of dragon singing. The running thunder seemed to be afraid and floated in the void like a tamed pet animal. Hey! With the sound of the dragon chant, lying flat in the void and stained with blood, the man who had fainted suddenly heard a slightly surprised light A, but then he was silent again. With the passage of time, I don't know how long, Xiao Yang's injury has recovered more than half, and his soul strength has recovered again. With a low groan, Xiao Yang finally woke up from his coma. The first time he woke up, Xiao Yang had noticed that Xiao Jin was lying on his chest and his body recovered to its original size. After a little feeling of the condition in his body, Xiao Yang smiled easily. All the injuries after the war with Mu Han have now recovered. Just about to get up, Xiao Yang's eyes casually swept through the void around him. At a glance, he saw the dark thunder floating in the void like a dead object. The next moment, Xiao Yang's face suddenly changed. His face just recovered ruddy became pale again. A pair of dark pupils revealed a deep color of horror. Xiao Yangmeng stood up, but found himself at the core of the void thunder pool. Countless black thunders were surrounding him and the motionless North King. Xiao Yang's mouth was wide open, but he didn't dare to breathe, and his face was shocked. Until now, he really reacted. In order to avoid Mu Han, he turned and rushed into the core of the empty thunder pool without hesitation. But now, he was surrounded by endless black thunder. It was just out of the tiger's den and into the wolf's nest. Hey, smelly boy, finally wake up. In the midst of Xiao Yang's horror, Jiu Yu's slightly joking voice came from the bottom of Xiao Yang's heart. Hearing the voice of Jiu Yu's words, Xiao Yang immediately reacted. The dark thunder in front of him was not as violent as before he entered. At this moment, the thunder seemed much calmer, just like a sword in its sheath, and put away its edge. It looks like someone subdued them. Old bones, these. Hey, I didn't make these. I said I wouldn't help you after entering the minefield this time, so I didn't subdue these guys. What is that? Hearing this, Xiao Yang frowned slightly and thought a little in his heart. In a moment, he fell his eyes on the void in front of him and turned over the flying little gold. Hey, this little guy is not as simple as you think. Although these thunder are violent, It's like meeting your ancestors in front of it. As long as it exists, you don't have to worry about what these thunder dare do to you, and… Hey, hey! Hearing Jiuyu's praise for Xiao Jin, Xiao Yang couldn't help but be surprised. It can make old guys like Jiuyu praise him. It can be seen that Xiao Jin has great growth potential in the future. However, what makes Xiao Yang suspicious is that the unspoken words of Jiuyu and the intriguing mysterious smile make Xiao Yang more curious about Xiao Jin in front of him. For Xiao Jin, Xiao Yang can be said to know his roots, but it seems that Xiao Yang's understanding of Xiao Jin has gradually changed since he came to Yuanwu mainland, or after it swallowed up the strange power of space. Noticing Xiao Yang's eyes, Xiao Jin also raised his head and looked forward. Then his flexible body twisted and quickly circled around Xiao Yang. Then he climbed to Xiao Yang's palm and climbed onto his shoulder. Xiao Yang slightly turned his head and looked at Xiao Jin, who was lying on his shoulder. They stared at each other for a long time. Xiao Yang looked at Xiao Jin's golden eyes. The pure golden light did not bring any impurities. His small and exquisite body was as old as Xiao Yang saw it for the first time. There was no change. If it had to be said, it could only be said that its strength was far higher than before. Oh, no matter how the little guy changes, he is still Xiao Jin. That's enough. Xiao Yang raised his palm, with warmth in his eyes, stroked Xiao Jin on his shoulder, and said to himself at the bottom of his heart. Xiao Jin felt the caress of Xiao Yang's palm. Xiao Yang's head lingered happily in Xiao Yang's slightly rough palm. His wet tongue licked Xiao Yang's palm and felt the crisp and itchy feeling from the palm. Xiao Yang looked at Xiao Jin again and found that the latter was looking at him. Xiao Yang immediately smiled, turned his palm, and a 9-grade pill appeared in the palm. Xiao Jin was not polite. At the moment when the pill appeared, he swished, twisted his petite body, quickly flashed into Xiao Yang's palm, stretched out 2 lovely dragon claws, picked up the pill with half its head in front of him, and swallowed the pill in a very exaggerated way. When Xiao Yang saw this scene, he couldn't help laughing. Then he stopped caring about Jiyu Xiaojin and let it play. Xiao Yang looked at the thunder pool with clear eyes. At the moment, there was a little brilliance in Jiyu Jing's dark eyes. Compared with those silver thunder from the outside world, the energy of the painted black thunder here is more terrible, and its own thunder power is more pure than that of the outside world. If it absorbs the thunder here, Xiao Yang even dares to conclude that his strength will definitely improve to a great level, which is exactly what he expected. Xiao Yang's eyes slowly swept the black thunder, and his eyes flickered. Suddenly, Xiao Yang grabbed a thunder with the thickness of his wrist in the palm of his hand. Starting with the thunder, Xiao Yang struggled violently in his hands. His powerful power was constantly released to escape from Xiao Yang's palm. However, Xiao Yang sneered at this. If there were nearly 100 thunders, Xiao Yang would naturally be difficult to parry. However, if he was only one of them, Xiao Yang would not be afraid. The thought moved. Xiao Yang grabbed the palm of the thunder and suddenly a different fire rose. However, in a short moment, the thunder turned into a very pure torrent of fighting spirit, poured into Xiao Yang and became a part of his strength. Feeling the pure fighting spirit pouring into his body, Xiao Yang gradually raised a smile around his mouth. Others regard the deep part of the thunder pool as a place of death. At the moment, for him, it is like heaven. Oh, next, let's make a breakthrough here. This video will end here.